Before I begin, I need to apologize for the very rough finish and editing, and also my annoying voice. I'm completely new to all of this, but I felt it was really important to make this video, and this is the only way I could bring it to life. For anyone familiar with the Varginha incident, you've probably already heard the recent revelations from Dr. Ítalo Venturelli. Whether you believe this man or not, I think we can all agree his testimony is pretty extraordinary. The first time I came across Dr. Ítalo in Moment of Contact 2, I was blown away by his account. For me, it is one of those stories you want to be true. Just his account alone almost had me scratching out the "want to" in my "I want to believe" poster. His account is portrayed as very credible, especially when you view the Varginha case as a whole and all the other witnesses involved. There are too many corroborating accounts to deny something strange occurred that day. As well as coming across as a sincere man, we are also told of his professional standing as a neurological doctor of over 30 years. With nothing to gain, he is no doubt putting his reputation on the line. So needless to say, as expected, there has been some buzz around the Moment of Contact too, especially the revelations from Dr. Ítalo. There has been numerous interviews with him from the likes of Michels, and he has also attended conferences, etc. to recall his account. In all interviews featuring Dr. Ítalo or speaking about him, the only damning detail and inconsistency that's ever been discussed and explained is when Dr. Ítalo originally claimed to have only seen a video of the non-human being, whilst he now claims he was actually in the same room as the alien being and had some kind of telepathic communication with it. In the Marco Leal interview with Dr. Ítalo Venturelli, dated 27th April 2023, Dr. Ítalo says he only saw the video depicting the being and did not actually see it.
Colocado uma válvula, um ser diferente e tal, o que eu achava, e me mostrou um vídeo, mas eu não tenho esse vídeo, né? A partir daí, uma movimentação muito grande na cidade, mas nem tudo a gente podia falar na época, né? E como eu reafirmo, eu não vi. Eu ouvi o relato de um colega, né? A inervação toda dele, não cheguei a ver, não. Não sei se eu estou ajudando muito, mas estou sendo muito sincero, tá? Quando eu vi, não vi, né?
In the next clip, James Fox explains to Chris Ramsey from Area 52 why Dr. Ítalo decided to reveal he was actually in the same room as the being.
So he sneaks us in, and I have no idea what's going on. Everything's happening rather quickly, right? So I'm told that I got to put on these scrubs. I got to put on a mask. I got to put on a hat because you can't enter ICU without that. You have to have all that gear on. So I'm putting everything on.
Sterile environment.
What's going on? Like, what's happening? What's, I'm just, okay. I'm just doing what I'm told. Sound guy, camera guy, Marco's there, Alini's there, translator, and takes us into the ICU. Then he starts talking about, this is where I saw the video, it was in this bed. And then he was just like, yeah, the ET was right here in this bed, right here in this room. I'm like, wait a minute, the video, the ET, what? And then it all comes out. Like, yeah, I was here that night. Marcos Vinicius is the one that performed the procedure. I was in this room with the ET. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is all unraveling all on camera. It's happening, where he was just saying, I don't care what the consequences are. I don't care anymore. I'm old enough. I'm seasoned enough. I'm important enough. Fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm coming forward. And he's doing it. And then we're filming. I'm just shocked. The whole thing is just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, this development is one of the biggest, if true, it's the biggest, most significant development in the history of the phenomenon, because I challenge anyone out there to show me testimony from anyone, particularly a neurosurgeon.
An active neurosurgeon, not retired.
Not retired, who's putting his entire career on the line to say, I had face-to-face contact, telepathic communication for 3 to 4 minutes with an alien in captivity.
So there we have James Fox detailing the exact moment he found out Dr. Ítalo says he was in the ICU with the being. And he did not just view a video of it. You can literally feel his amazement. But was James Fox and his team blindsided by this? In the Varginha press conference from January 2026, coming up next, Fox admits to being fixated on Dr. Ítalo and the video.
We found Ítalo, and I jokingly describe him as trying to grab a bar of soap in the bathtub. You know, it was like he would kind of respond. He seemed like he was conflicted, and then he would not get back to us. And then finally he agreed to meet with Marco Leal and do a Zoom call. I think it was like 2023. And I was just fixated on the video. So I was asking him over the video with interpreter Marco Leal, you know, did you see the video? Did you see the video? And now I've adopted the nickname, oh my God, because when I found out when he confessed to having seen the video, I was like, oh my God, where is it? Who shot it? Where, you know? So we were like, all right, we're going back to Brazil. We're going to meet with the 2 forensic pathologists because that was a huge development. And now we had a potential lead to get our hands in the video. But we kept trying to get a hold of him over the next year. And then he had a heart attack after he admitted the video, but he wasn't willing to go anything further at that point. That was, the video was as far as he was willing to go. He had a heart attack, and he said he was staring at the ICU, the ceiling, and thinking, I can't take this to the grave. If I get through this, I'm gonna meet with James's team and I'm gonna reveal all. So in 2025, in January, we went back to Brazil. We were meeting with Dr. Armando and Dr. Giannini, and we were talking about the autopsy and the tissue samples. And oh, and by the way, Dr. Armando, could you get a hold of, you know, of course, he's one of the most well-connected people within the medical community. Could you get a hold of Dr. Ítalo? Oh, yeah. Whips out his phone. Dr. Ítalo. They speak, and he says, meet him around the backside of the hospital tomorrow morning. The backside? So our team, we're not going to ask any questions. We're on the back side. He sneaks us in the back of the hospital, down through the various series of corridors, and then right into the ICU. And that's when he decided to drop the bomb. And he did. And it got us all off guard. So I just want to say, Dr. Ítalo, it takes tremendous courage for someone who's got so much to lose and nothing to gain. He's not making a dime. He's not selling a book. He's not trying to sell a documentary. He's still working on people's brains. So I know that courage is infectious, and it's strength in numbers.
In the way it's presented in the film and subsequent interviews, it's made to look like some kind of groundbreaking expose, and we even have Ross Coulthart calling it groundbreaking investigative journalism.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing that blows me away about what you're revealing here, and there's much more to come, is you've done layered quality investigative journalism. This is not something that's easily debunked. You have multiple corroborative witnesses supporting a consistent claim.
I have the head neurosurgeon that runs the entire department at Regional Hospital today, willing to take a public lie detector test and testify that everything he's saying is true. And then there are other doctors that we're talking to now. Like
did he lose his job because you did the interview, or was it okay?
It was tumultuous, but he was so in demand that they couldn't, he's the lead guy, so they couldn't shoot themselves in the foot. So it's been rough. It's a bit of a rough ride with him. But he said to me, he goes, James, I don't care the consequences. The world needs to know this happened. This being that I encountered communicated with me telepathically. It was a highly advanced intelligence, way more than anything he's ever seen here on Earth. He called it almost like an angel. And it was, despite the fact that it sends chills. Like, despite the fact that it was in captivity, it had control of the room. So the other neurosurgeon who was on duty that night was his sort of protege. It was Dr. Ítalo and Dr. Marcos Vinicius. Dr. Marco Vinicius did a little procedure on the creature. Apparently it had some damage, some swelling, something happened. Did a little procedure on the creature, and I don't want to go into too much detail because it's an ongoing thing. And then he had a heart attack and died in 2018. Okay, so now he's gone, and his partner, who's the lead neurosurgeon, Dr. Ítalo, himself had a heart attack just a few months ago, and he's in the ICU, staring at the ceiling, thinking that he was going to die, and he thought, "I can't believe I'm taking this to the grave. This is not right. If I survive this, I'm going public." And then, yep. And so he said, "I'm doing this for my grandchildren, and I don't care what the consequences are. I don't care." That's what he said.
That is such a raw act of courage. Those are the kind of whistleblowers we need, James. And full credit to you. Full credit to you for persuading him to speak to you about it. I just take my hat off to witnesses like Dr. Ítalo Venturelli for having the courage to come forward.
The only thing we have been presented with so far is everyone's amazement, including James Fox, that this neurosurgeon claims to have spent 4 to 5 minutes with a non-human being. For the most part, everyone seems to be on board with his account. Especially given all his credentials, we are compelled to believe. I know I was. The only inconsistency within his story is readily explained, and in my opinion, that inconsistency is more than plausible. 30 years ago, who would have wanted a neurosurgeon operating on their brain who says they spent time with an alien and had telepathic communication with it? I think that would have a lot of people rattled today. Let alone in the 90s.
So I'm here with, in my mind, maybe the most significant witness when it comes to seeing UFOs, ET beings from what seemed to be another world in the entire world. And the reason I say that is because of your background, your pedigree. You're a neurosurgeon. People depend on you to operate on their brains. You manage a chain of 3 hospitals who cannot operate without you. And because you spent 4 to 5 minutes, in your own estimation, face to face with one of these entities. And so it is an absolute honor to be with you today. And I can't thank James Fox enough for getting you, Dr. Armando Carlos de Souza, all to the U.S. This is a dream come true for me. So thank you for being here. In 2023, you gave an interview to Marco Leal, who's James's co-producer on his movie. He's a famed UFO researcher local to the region. And you told him that you hadn't seen the being directly, you just saw the video. And so a lot of people on the internet and in public are saying, that's an inconsistency in his statements. What do you have to say about that?
Well, they're right, because I couldn't tell everything, even in 2023. And I didn't want to. Because it's not as simple as me being here. To be here, I had to pay people to be on call for me. I've exposed myself to doing a lot of things. We expose ourselves to the medical council censoring us. There are a number of things. I'm not rich. I live off the work I do. But when James went looking for the tape, he looked for the tape, looked for the tape, looked for the tape. He's going to offer $1 million to Marcos Vinicius' wife if she has the tape. And when they didn't find the tape, I'm in the ICU and he's still interviewing me. At one point I said, I can't prove it. I don't have the tape. Marcos Vinicius died. Whatever I say, you either believe it or you don't. That's a difficult thing to accept. But I was in the ICU. I thought I was going to have to be intubated. I had a pulmonary thrombosis. I thought I was going to check out. I'm done. I had also had a heart attack. Then, going back to talking to James, where's the tape? At one point I said, I don't have the tape, but I was there. Either you believe my word or you don't. But I was there. I saw it, and I told the whole story that I'm telling you now, the entire sequence. And how emotional I get when I talk about it. I speak mainly to younger people. I saw it. You can believe it, you cannot believe it. You can tell me I'm this, I'm that, but it was right there in front of me. Do you believe it or not?
In this clip, Jesse Michels references Dr. Italo's earlier interview with Marco Leal, which we'll revisit throughout this video for comparison. He also raises the point that Dr. Italo said he had only seen the video rather than the being itself, something that has prompted questions about a possible inconsistency.
I think what people might be wondering about in your case, because your credentials are unimpeachable in my opinion, but they might be wondering why not go from outright denial because you're fear for your life and because, it's hard to talk about these things, to admitting that you saw the being. I think people might have trouble with the fact that you said you saw the video and then you go into seeing the being. And maybe that's just nervousness and not knowing how to react in these sort of situations. But
like I said, not even to my children or my wife. I told my wife this. This is a closed subject. But as I thought I was really going to die, and I always said to James, separate money from what I'm saying. I'm not selling anything. Nothing. I don't need to take anything. The little I have is enough for myself.
Dr. Italo provides a reasonable explanation, and beyond this particular inconsistency, there appear to be few obvious reasons to dismiss his account. Seen in that light, it's understandable why James Fox would respond with this heartfelt statement about Dr. Italo.
Whether you believe him or you don't believe him, this man has dedicated his life to making other people's lives better, helping other people. He's one of the most caring, compassionate individuals I've ever met. So just remember to be kind, be compassionate. He has everything to lose and nothing to gain by coming forward. We are working with good people within the U.S. government to protect him. And if any Brazilian military people out there are thinking about paying him a visit, I will dedicate my life to exposing that. So, again, this gentleman deserves our support and care and kindness. Thank you.
Now that we have got that inconsistency out of the way and we have James Fox telling us to be kind, let's now address the many other inconsistencies that the moment of contact new revelations and subsequent interviews have either failed to clarify or perhaps chose not to address. When the earlier interviews are compared more closely, some details still remain difficult to reconcile. Just a little over 2 years ago in 2023, when Dr. Italo only divulged that he had seen the video, he was asked several times to describe the being he saw in the video. He described the color of its eyes 4 times. Here is what he said.
E ele me disse o que tinha feito e me mostrou vídeo, né? E parecia tudo certo. No vídeo esse ser era os olhos mais avermelhados, né? Os olhos mais avermelhados, né? Mas é isso que eu vi, né?
Certo. No vídeo, o senhor poderia detalhar, assim, o senhor viu detalhes assim de boca, nariz, como é que era?
O tronco muito fino, o rosto tipo de uma gota, os olhos mais avermelhados, é o que eu me lembro.
Doutor, as características físicas que o senhor lembra quando o senhor viu o vídeo desse ser, dessa criatura, o senhor poderia comentar as características físicas, o máximo de lembrança que o senhor tem do vídeo? E se o senhor ficou horrorizado, assim, na hora?
A parte de baixo estava coberta com lençol, né? Eu vi a parte de cima, um tórax fino, a cabeça maior, mas a cabeça não da nossa forma, mas a cabeça mais angulada, né? Como tem no site de vocês, mais angulado, né? Com 3 pequenas protuberâncias, né? Os olhos mais avermelhados e grandes, né?
In April 2023, he confirmed on 4 different occasions that the eyes were red. He tells this to interviewer Marco Leal, who is James Fox's co-producer on his movies. In the following clip from Moment of Contact, New Revelations, Dr. Ítalo reiterates that he saw red eyes.
Ítalo Venturelli, the head neurosurgeon at Hospital Regional, was on duty in the ICU when he had the most extraordinary encounter of his life.
In this room or which room?
This room.
Right here.
Mas o vídeo que o senhor assistiu da cirurgia foi...
The alien was alive in this bed right here.
Deitado aqui.
So he saw the
Coberto
creature
aqui.
right
Saw
here.
the creature right there.
Coberto
while,
até,
Right there.
while he was
coberto
watching
até
the
aqui, ó.
video of the surgery.
Coberto até aqui. His eyes, they were like a teardrops, red, much redder. Especially right here, you know. And he was, well, partially covered. He was right here, you know. But he was still alive.
He looked at in the eyes of the creature
Yes.
in this bed.
In this bed.
And what did the creature say to you?
Sim.
What?
I saw the red eyes.
His face was white, his eyes were red, and he wasn't showing any suffering at all now.
Dizer para vocês, é verdade, nada mais do que a verdade. Sou médico há 46 anos e em 1996, no dia 20 de janeiro, eu fui chamado para ver um paciente, né? A cabecinha grande, mas em forma de gota, né? Boca pequenininha, uma das mãos estava dentro de um campo e outra para fora. O olho não era vermelho, estava lilás, também em forma de gota.
Here, Dr. Ítalo has spoken with confidence that the eyes were red. Yet in the following clips from the same movie and subsequent interviews, he now describes the eyes as lilac rather than red.
Parecia uma criança de uns 7 anos. Um lençol coberto, até aqui, no corpo, né, até a cintura. Os olhos eram lilás, bem como o crânio.
It looked like a 7-year-old child with a sheet covering up to its waist. Its eyes were lilac and teardrop-shaped. The cranium was also teardrop-shaped.
Parecia uma criança de uns 7 anos. Um lençol coberto parte do seu corpo até a cintura. Os olhos eram lilás, em forma de gota, assim como o seu crânio.
It looked like a 7-year-old child with a sheet covering up to its waist. Its eyes were lilac and teardrop-shaped, and so was the cranium.
Physical characteristics, you've described this before, but what exactly did this being look like?
Humanoid, right? He had arms, he had a chest. Hal's wife asked if he had nipples. I didn't see nipples. I didn't see a nipple lying there like that. Neck, very small mouth. The eyes, like this, as if they were drops. Like that. Lilac. 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 Just like Elizabeth Taylor's eyes.
Yes. I remember.
The skull looked like a drop. The eyes also looked like 2 drops. Lilac, not red. Not red. White skin, no foul smell. At first glance, it looked like Casper, the friendly ghost, you know, from the cartoon.
Despite Dr. Ítalo stating that the eyes were lilac in Moment of Contact, New Revelations at the Varginha press conference and on the Jesse Michels show, in the next clip, James Fox tells Ross Coulthart that Dr. Ítalo described the being in the exact same way as the 3 girls did.
Sneaks us into the ICU exactly where it happened. We get masked up because you can't be in the ICU without it. So we get all of our masks on. I don't know where this is going. And all of a sudden he just starts telling all. Wow. And it was extraordinary. And then the hospital staff caught us filming. And what are you doing in here? You're not supposed to be filming. Nobody has any permits. Nobody, you know. So they kick us out. But we'd gotten the goods. And he's like, I think I just lost my job. And so they kick us all out. So we leave the hospital and we go into a we didn't know where we're going. We just went into a cafe next door and we're filming at this cafe. We're all like practically crying. And I asked them how it felt after 29 years to come forward, what it was like to look into the eyes of this creature. Tell me what it was like. I was dying to know.
Lilac, not red.
But he describes his skin as more white with the big red eyes and the little horns, exactly the way the girls described. And
Even though Dr. Ítalo told James Fox's co-producer Marco in 2023 that the eyes were red, when they are present at more recent interviews and conferences, why do they not question this important discrepancy themselves?
so then they went to regional hospital, and that's where Ítalo was. So it makes perfectly good sense. We knew that creature went to regional. So,
and so when the women saw it, it was like brown or darker.
It was, yeah.
And then when he saw it, it was somehow
it was whiter.
White.
It was more of a white, big red eyes, just like the girls described.
This is not the only inconsistency worth examining. This inconsistency really has me scratching my head. In the previous clips we've just watched, Dr. Ítalo describes the eye color he saw in the video, though it's still somewhat unclear whether they were red or actually lilac. However, one key question remains. How was Dr. Ítalo able to determine the eye color at all, when he states here that the footage he viewed was in black and white?
I want you to describe the video in as much detail as you can. And I think this is important because if a video surfaces, it should have these details that you're describing. And that's good corroboration, both for your testimony and for the veracity of the video. So can you describe the video, the length, and then what happens in the video?
I can. So I went into the room. The doctor was over here. There was a big camera, which I held in my hand. It had something like a calculator, small, here, and then the black and white video. From the video, this is what I saw. Black and white, a child with a larger head, lying down in the same position he was lying in, head this way, body this way, calm, and he was conscious, he was awake, he had eyes. In the video, you couldn't see if there were pupils because it was black and white.
1996, eu estava trabalhando no Hospital Regional de Varginha, quando colega meu, chamado Marcos Vinícius, com uma câmera muito grande, me chamou numa sala de urgência para ver paciente.
That afternoon in 1996, I was working at Varginha Regional Hospital when my colleague and fellow neurosurgeon Marcos Vinícius Neve urgently called me into an improvised intensive care room. He was carrying a large video camera.
Ao entrar na sala, me mostrou uma câmera em preto e branco que parecia uma criança deitada numa cama com uma hidrocefalia extrema.
Upon entering, he showed me a black and white video on the camera screen that appeared to be a child lying in bed with an extreme case of hydrocephalus.
And did you see the video before or after you saw the being directly?
I saw the video before, and then immediately afterwards I saw the being. I saw the video before, so that's why I asked, what is this? I thought, can it be another case of Cruzon syndrome? I imagined so, but it wasn't.
No vídeo, o senhor poderia detalhar, assim, o senhor viu detalhes assim de boca, nariz, como é que era?
Tronco muito fino, o rosto tipo de uma gota, os olhos mais avermelhados, é o que eu me lembro.
Why did Dr. Ítalo say in 2023 that the eyes appeared red in the video, if he now maintains that the footage was black and white and that the eyes were lilac? And it doesn't stop there. When we examine his testimonies more closely, other issues become apparent. If the last irregularity was puzzling, this one is even more difficult to ignore.
O senhor lembra do número de dedos na mão?
Não.
Não.
Não recordo.
In Marco Leal's 2023 interview with Dr. Ítalo, he states that he did not see the hands. Given that Marco Leal is a co-producer, would this not raise concerns when Dr. Ítalo later describes them in detail? Later, in a separate interview with Jesse Michels and at the Varginha conference, the description becomes more detailed.
Anything else about the physiology of this being, whether they had the same reproductive organs as human beings, were their bone structures
I
the
can't
same?
say, because from here down I couldn't see anything. It was covered up. There was definitely a bone structure, because there was an arm, a forearm, a hand, and an opposable thumb, as it's called. And 3 fingers here.
A pele era branca, os braços finos, a mão com 3 dedos, polegar opositor, não tinha mamilos e uma boca pequena.
The skin was white, the arms very thin, and the hand had 3 fingers and an opposing thumb. It had no nipples and a tiny mouth.
A pele era branca, os braços bem finos, 3 dedos, com o polegar opositor, não havia mamilo e uma boca pequena.
The skin was white, the arms were very thin, and the hand had 3 fingers and an opposing thumb.
O senhor lembra do número de dedos na mão?
Não recordo.
Up next, we turn to another part of the story that raises further questions. In the same 2023 interview, Dr. Ítalo describes the surface on which he saw the non-human being.
Acho que é uma maca de necrotério. Aquelas macas prateadas. Porque não estava com campo cirúrgico, não estava com nada. Parecia uma maca mais de um necrotério, né? Eu vi aqui aquela maca, ele era menor do que a largura da maca, estava aqui e a maca ainda era mais larga, né? E um pedaço com um lençol branco, né? Quer dizer, a maca é típica de ML. A maca. Mas ele estava movimentando, então não era um ser morto, né? Eu vi só uma maca com um ser mais esbranquiçado. Eu não sei se isso é montagem ou se era, mas estava na hora ali, né? Dificilmente foi uma montagem, estava na hora ali, né?
He refers to it as a silver morgue stretcher, like one you would find in a coroner's office. Typically, a morgue stretcher is flat, which differs significantly from the hospital bed he now describes to Jesse Michels.
He was just lying there with the surgical drape. One hand in and the other out, like this. Nothing here, and it's peaceful. The bed positioned upright, like we do for neurological patients. They don't lie down completely. Otherwise, the patient might vomit. The patient stays more upright. And it's very, very comfortable.
Considering that Marco Leal heard a different description in 2023, one might expect this inconsistency to have been clarified. The next detail adds another layer to the story. These 2 descriptions, a valve surgery versus a minor procedure, imply very different levels of intervention.
Bom, naquele dia, eu havia operado uma criança que tinha síndrome de Cruzon. Era um pouquinho disforme, né? Tive que colocar uma válvula também.
In his 2023 interview, Dr. Ítalo explains that he performed surgery on a child with Cruzon syndrome and had to place a valve. Dr. Ítalo then confirms on several occasions that a valve was also placed in the creature.
Né?
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né? Eu fui acudir como se eu estivesse vendo um outro paciente, né? E ele falou, pois é, estava assim, mostrou o vídeo, né? O pessoal vestido de jaleco, alguns de coisa cirúrgica, né? Eu coloquei uma válvula porque estava assim. Né? O que você acha? tá bem, né? Tá tudo certo, né? Mas eu não vi o ser, né? Conversei com outro colega que não está mais entre a gente e tal, que me disse, eu não vi, mas ele me disse que tinha colocado uma válvula num ser diferente e tal.
When a hydrocephalus shunt is placed, the procedure involves more than simply inserting a valve. In standard neurosurgical practice, the valve is part of a complete drainage system that includes tubing placed into the brain and routed under the skin to another part of the body. In human neurosurgery, a valve is normally part of a complete shunt system designed to drain fluid away from the brain. Without tubing leading elsewhere, such as to the abdomen, the medical purpose of a valve alone is unclear. The operation usually takes around 45 minutes to an hour, although complex cases can take longer.
What was the nature of the surgery that was done on this being?
I think he only gave a few stitches. But I'm guessing, right? I didn't see him stitch it up. He must have stitched it up a few times, because the surgical instruments in the video were very small. He didn't have a surgical kit. He didn't have many open tools. Neurosurgery is all about boxes and boxes of open tools. Just like Formula One, you know? If my colleague took it there and stitched it up, it's because he must have been bleeding heavily. Blood is what scares lay people, right? It scares all of us, of course. But if it's bleeding, then, so if it went there and was taken quickly to that place, it must have been bleeding. That's what I think. Otherwise, it didn't need to be there. It was breathing normally. It wasn't in a coma. It wasn't intubated. Because critical patients get intubated. They get an IV drip. It didn't even have an IV drip. Nothing had been injected into it. You see? All I had was what would eventually happen. As I described, putting in stitches. That's why I think they took it to the hospital and then took it away.
What did Marcos Vinicius tell you about the being when he shows it to you? Did he give you any context?
He said, I performed a procedure. From what I saw on the tape, there was a little basin like this, an emesis basin, and a needle holder. He probably gave stitches. It wasn't a big surgery. It was a small procedure.
While a single neurosurgeon may perform the procedure, it normally involves a full operating room team. This is why later, describing it as a simple procedure, or something comparable to stitches, presents a very different picture of what is normally involved.
So it's almost like he wanted you to review his work and just make sure that he had done the right thing.
Yes. Yes.
Did he take anything out of the head, or it was just, what was the purpose of the surgery?
I think it was only to give some stitches from the instruments I saw on the table. That I saw in the video, because when I went to look, there was nothing there anymore. It was covered up. It had already happened. That's why he said, come see what I've done.
Okay, so it was not necessarily surgically removing anything. It was just repairing.
No.
Okay.
Yes, to repair.
That makes sense, because if you have something that's physiologically very different than a human being, if you had to do something more intricate or complex on the organ itself, if it wasn't something you were familiar with, that would be much harder, obviously. Question I know that the audience will ask, based on Michael's questions, which I think are great, is if you were brought in by Marcos Vinicius to review the surgery, because he's saying, you're a more senior guy, you're a more senior neurosurgeon, I want you to check my work, why wouldn't you know the exact nature of that surgery?
Because I hadn't seen Marcos Vinicius yet. When she came in and asked about the alien, I'm out here, he's in there. There's no cell phone, I haven't seen Marcos Vinicius yet. I don't know what's going on in there. When I entered the hospital and went down to the pediatrics ward...
Not from the TV reporters before. That makes total sense. I mean, generally, like now, the specific surgery that was done, why don't you know those details, given that he was bringing you in to kind of check his work and review it as a senior neurosurgeon?
But it was to see if the patient was okay. That was it. Just to see if the patient was okay. Was he alive? He didn't go into detail about the type of surgery, because I think it was something so simple that he had no doubts. Just a stitch.
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né?
And since I thought it was a very simple question from you, we didn't even talk about it. Apparently just to put a stitch in. I wasn't going to talk about that.
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né?
It was like the next time you saw him, wouldn't you have been like, dude, what was that all about? Like,
Sure.
And you get, so you had that conversation. And what was that like?
Sure, but not at the moment it happened. What, with Marcos Vinicius? No, average patient.
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né?
But afterwards, when did you first talk to the other surgeon about what you had about the alien?
I only spoke with Marcos Vinicius. We have other neurosurgeons there, and I don't know if they saw it or if they talked to him. But it was that sort of thing that you don't go into detail about.
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né?
You don't speculate. If it were today, my God. What did you do? What stitch did you use? What kind of thread? But that was never the point of discussion. He tended to the being, it's alive, okay, next.
But the other doctor, did you speak to him afterwards about what he had done?
No, he said he did a small surgery, and look what I did.
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né?
But given the location, everything was for a minor surgery, a stitch, something like that. They didn't have the necessary materials.
But like, you must have talked to the other surgeon about what he did to the alien afterwards.
No, he only said, look what I did. I didn't speak to him after about what he did.
Ele disse para o senhor que ele colocou uma válvula na criatura?
Sim. Foi o que ele me disse, né?
Here we see the room Dr. Ítalo says the creature was in at Hospital Regionale in Varginha. We also hear him describe the room and recount physically seeing the being immediately after viewing the video.
In this room or which room?
This room.
Right here.
Mas o vídeo que o senhor assistiu da cirurgia
The
foi...
alien was alive in this bed right there.
Deitado aqui.
So
And did you see the video before or after you saw the being directly?
I saw the video before, and then immediately afterwards I saw the being. I saw the video before. He called me to an adjacent room and said, look what I did. He showed me a large camera with what seemed to be a small calculator right next to it. I looked and didn't understand what it was. For a moment, it looked like another case of Cruzon syndrome. It was a child. It looked like one. But I asked him, what is this? He said, it's here. He came over. There was a screen, a cover, right? I looked, got closer, and it was there.
In this 2023 account, listen carefully to how Dr. Ítalo describes the setting, as it differs from the hospital location he now identifies.
O local em que essa criatura aparece no vídeo, você acredita que é um centro cirúrgico, mas não conseguiu identificar...
Eu nem acho que é um centro cirúrgico, eu acho que é uma maca de necrotério. Certo. Aquelas macas prateadas. Porque não estava com campo cirúrgico, não estava com nada. Parecia uma maca mais de um necrotério, né?
Mas o local onde aparece a criatura no vídeo, o senhor não conseguiu identificar como sendo algum local aqui de Varginha?
Não, isso eu não consegui ver, porque estava a câmera fechada, né? Eu vi aqui aquela maca, ele era menor do que a largura da maca, estava aqui e a maca ainda era mais larga, né? E um pedaço com um lençol branco, né?
This raises an obvious question. If Dr. Ítalo had physically been in that room, why was he unable to identify it when describing the video?
And I asked him, "What is this?" He was beside me. Then he moved over this way, and he said it's right next to me.
In several interviews, the length of the video is described as being around 20 seconds.
O senhor lembra quanto tempo mais ou menos de vídeo?
Uns 15, 20 segundos, né? Uma documentação, né? Olha o que eu fiz. Olhei, ali movimentou, tudo tal.
Across these accounts, the duration remains consistent, but in a later interview, the timing is described differently by Dr. Ítalo.
So can you describe the video, the length, and then what happens in the video?
I can. So I went into the room. The doctor was over here. There was a big camera, which I held in my hand. It had something like a calculator, small, here, and then the black and white video. A being with a slightly larger head lying down. Surgical material, it was like what we call an emesis basin, with a needle holder, forceps. The being lying there, looking at the camera like that, without any sign of suffering. May have taken a minute and a half or two.
Here, the duration is described as significantly longer.
So I asked him, like, how long did you spend with this creature?
May have taken a minute and a half or two.
So I asked him, like, how long did you spend with this creature?
Uns 15, 20 segundos, né?
We have already heard Dr. Ítalo describe the setting of the video as resembling a coroner's office rather than a surgical center. Later, the same setting is now described as an intensive care unit.
Ítalo Venturelli, the head neurosurgeon at Hospital Regional, was on duty in the ICU when he had the most extraordinary encounter of his life.
That afternoon in 1996, I was working at Varginha Regional Hospital when my colleague and fellow neurosurgeon Marcos Vinicius Neve urgently called me into an improvised intensive care room. He was carrying a large video camera.
And he snuck us into the back of the hospital, snuck us in. And we're going, what's happening? What's going on? He sneaks us into the ICU, exactly where it happened. We get masked up because you can't be in the ICU without it. So I'm told that I got to put on these scrubs. I got to put on a mask. I got to put on a hat because you can't enter ICU without that. You have to have all that gear on. So I'm putting everything on.
Sterile environment.
What's going on? Like, what's happening? What's, I'm just, okay. I'm just doing what I'm told. Sound guy, camera guy, Marco's there, Alini's there, translator, and takes us into the ICU. Then he starts talking about, this is where I saw the video. Is in this bed.
And here, as a maternity ward.
Did the hospital ever take administrative action against you because of your speaking out about this after 2023?
No, they just prohibited me from filming inside. And that's right, because once I filmed, I went into the maternity ward with James in the room, where it was.
Another detail to consider is that James Fox says Marco Leal was present during filming. Since Marco had previously interviewed Dr. Ítalo in 2023, some viewers may wonder whether the differences we have discussed so far were ever addressed.
When he said, "Come see what I've done," Whenever someone says that to us who have been doctors for years, we automatically think it's an emergency. At first, it was a relief. Because when he called me and I saw it, I thought it was an emergency, that we would have to intubate, go into surgery.
That afternoon in 1996, I was working at Varginha Regional Hospital when my colleague and fellow neurosurgeon Marcos Vinicius Neve urgently called me into an improvised intensive care room.
In several interviews, Dr. Ítalo describes the moment as feeling urgent, as if he was being called into an emergency situation. However, elsewhere, the same event is described more as routine supervision, something that happened regularly between colleagues.
Então, quando eu entrei, quase sempre quando a gente vinha, ele tinha feito um procedimento e ele pedia para a gente ver se concordava, né? Não, estava tranquilo. Cheguei, entrei assim na entrada ali do centro cirúrgico, vem cá, vem ver uma coisa. Aí viu, me mostrou, eu fiz isso daqui, o que você acha? Eu falei assim, acho que tá certo, né?
Like stitches. Like, so he said to you, come see what I did, like he always did?
That's right.
Because it's a little strange to be like, I just operated on an alien, come see what I did, just like it's a normal thing. Or did he seem like agitated or upset?
At least I didn't have a sense of it. Until I saw it, until I examined it, until I calmed down. That's when it started to dawn on me that it was a different being. Until then, we view them as patients at risk of death. If I hadn't gone there, he would have continued seeing patients there. He was already fine. He didn't need me. He only asked because he always asked. It was more of a sign-off. Oh, he said he did a small surgery, and look what I did. But given the location, everything was for a minor surgery, a stitch, something like that. We had a younger colleague called Marcos Vinicius, a younger neurosurgeon, who every time we had surgery to perform, would ask for certain instructions.
He explains that his colleague often asked him to review work, that this was normal practice, and that on this occasion, the colleague was calm and simply seeking confirmation. This creates a subtle tension in the story. Was this an urgent call, or simply a normal professional check?
Pessoal vestido de jaleco, alguns de coisa cirúrgica, né? Pessoal de centro cirúrgico mesmo, né? Eles estavam ao lado da pessoa, né? Do ser, né? Eles estavam ao lado dele. Duas pessoas de jaleco aqui, duas pessoas de traje cirúrgico, né? Ao lado dele.
In several descriptions, Dr. Ítalo recalls multiple people visible around the being, including medical staff in lab coats and surgical clothing. Elsewhere, the video is described more as a tightly framed image, focused mainly on the being itself, with less context visible.
I want you to describe the video in as much detail as you can, and I think this is important because if a video surfaces, it should have these details that you're describing, and that's good corroboration, both for your testimony and for the veracity of the video.
So I went into the room. The doctor was over here. There was a big camera, which I held in my hand. It had something like a calculator, small, here, and then the black and white video. A being with a slightly larger head lying down. Surgical material, it was like what we call an emesis basin, with a needle holder, forceps. The being lying there, looking at the camera like that. From the video, this is what I saw. Black and white, a child with a larger head, lying down in the same position he was lying in, head this way, body this way, long arms. The surgery itself isn't shown. What's shown is the being. It was like a post-operative period. It already happened. He keeps telling me, come see what I did. He didn't do it in front of me. He did it right there and then. You understand? And the material that I saw was this. It was just a clamp and forceps, as if a stitch had been done, like we do in emergency rooms, so much so the location was improvised.
E tinha umas pessoas em volta, eu vi ele se mexendo, mas é isso que eu vi, né? Não, isso eu não consegui ver, porque estava a câmera fechada, né?
Depending on the interview, the video is remembered either as a populated medical scene or a tightly focused image of the being.
Just looking. So I didn't touch it. And I approached it like this. I didn't get that close, about a meter, like the distance between us here.
Dr. Ítalo gives two slightly different descriptions of how close he was to the being. At one point, he says he was about 1 meter away, which suggests he was fairly close and able to see details clearly. Later, when asked why he didn't inspect the being more closely, he says he was far away and positioned on the other side of the room.
Why didn't you look closely? Why didn't you inspect?
Because he was here and I was far away. He was by the wall. I was over here. I was preoccupied with other things, as I said. The window was there, and he was right there by the window. I didn't go in behind it to look at him there. And he kept looking out the window. I think maybe to see his surroundings, perhaps. He looked out the window. He looked back at me.
The room shown in moment of contact, which is presented as the same hospital room, appears very small. The bed, equipment, and window take up most of the space, making it difficult to be more than a few feet from the patient at any time. Because of this, the difference between being about a meter away and being far away becomes unclear. This doesn't necessarily mean his account is wrong. It may simply reflect how people describe distance differently when recalling events, particularly in a small space like the room shown. However, the change in wording creates some ambiguity about exactly how close he was during the encounter, and also makes it harder to understand how multiple medical staff would have been visible in a video Dr. Ítalo describes as a close-up.
Identificar como sendo algum local de Varginha.
Não, isso eu não consegui ver, porque estava a câmera fechada, né? E não conversei muita coisa também não, só ele mostrou, fiz isso aqui, o que você acha? Eu falei, tá certo, né? E pronto. E aí eu fui ver a criança, que eu me dirigia, eu estava preocupado com a criança, né? Eu não fiquei no local.
Were you a witness to the being removed from the hospital? Do you have any details on that? No.
I went into the room, he was there. I left the room, he was there.
So you told Marcos Vinicius you've done a good job and there's nothing more to do, essentially.
You've done a good job. That's it. It's all good. Will you call me if you need anything? I will.
When he was called to see it in the room,
Ele já estava lá.
it was already there.
E eu vi tudo aquilo, explica para ela, e eu estava interessado numa outra criança grave.
And when he got into the room, his mind was with this other child that he had performed surgery on earlier. So he was really wanting to check on this other child. So his time with the being was limited.
Ele estava bem, estava tudo certo, não precisava de mim.
That being was all right and it didn't need him. So he had to go over to attend to the other child.
Não vi militares.
He didn't see military personnel at that time.
It's really upsetting to think that it was just taken away a few days later. So the question is, how did he find out that the being was taken, and was it possibly taken by the U.S. government?
Para ele é muito ruim pensar que esse ser, né, queria se liberar, queria ir para casa, mas não, e que se o senhor tem conhecimento de quem veio buscar esse ser, como é que ele saiu do hospital?
Infelizmente eu não sei responder.
Unfortunately, I don't know how to
Quando eu
answer that.
cheguei, ele já estava
When
lá.
I arrived there, the being was already there.
Eu examinei,
I examined the being,
vi que ele estava muito bem
saw the being was well,
e saí. Eu não sei
and
o que
left.
levou.
So he's not sure what happened before or after. That's all he knows of the story.
And he said after about 4 minutes, he stepped out to do something, and the military burst in, I think exactly what he said, burst in, and took the bean and threatened everyone with secrecy and then left.
After several minutes of interaction with the being, in this exact ICU at Hospital Regional, Dr. Ítalo told us the military burst in and took the being, then threatened the hospital staff to remain silent.
You've mentioned a few times in this interview that there was no smell. Many of the other witnesses of the being have said an ammonia or sulfur-like smell accompanied this being or the craft crashing.
Odorless. No smell at all. If there was a smell, it was the smell of the hospital. The smell of those products we use in a hospital. There was no bad smell. Nothing at all.
In several interviews, Dr. Ítalo describes the room as clean, with no unusual odor.
We interviewed a radiologist, and I think he was at Regional Hospital. Pretty sure it was Regional. And he said that the room where he did the performance of doing the x-rays, that stank like they had to close that wing of the hospital down for days. Well, what did it smell like?
Esse cheiro é cheiro forte, misturado com tipo de enxofre ou amônia. Por mais que fosse lavado com desinfectado, o cheiro permanecia no setor. E, inclusive, o nosso setor foi fechado porque não tinha condições de atender os pacientes externos, por causa do odor que estava muito forte. O cheiro permaneceu até no dia seguinte ainda, e o pessoal tudo reclamando.
However, another medical witness from the same hospital describes a very different situation, saying the smell was strong enough that part of the hospital was temporarily closed.
Is because of your background, your pedigree. You're a neurosurgeon. People depend on you to operate on their brains. You manage a chain of 3 hospitals who cannot operate without you.
I went in because I had been the director there, very well known.
Because Dr. Ítalo also held a leadership role at the hospital, this raises a natural question. If an area had been closed due to a persistent odor, would that have been something he was aware of? This doesn't necessarily mean either account is incorrect, but the two descriptions do create some uncertainty about how events unfolded.
White skin, no foul smell.
Taken together, the accounts describe 2 very different experiences, one with no unusual odor, and another where the smell became a significant issue.
O senhor teria informação da pessoa que teria esse vídeo, se ele permanece aqui em Varginha ainda?
Esse vídeo aqui mostrava a esposa dele, pode ser que tenha, porque estava no computador dele, né? Ele faleceu há alguns anos, só assim foi formatado.
In earlier interviews, the fate of the video is described differently, depending on the source and translation. In the original version of the 2023 interview, the wording suggests the hard drive may have been formatted.
Que era o computador da casa dele.
In another translation, the wording appears more definitive, that everything was formatted because it was on his home computer. For Portuguese speakers, the original wording may be clearer, and listeners may interpret whether he is saying it was definitely formatted or only possibly formatted.
Só assim foi formatado tudo, que era o computador da casa dele. Só se foi formatado tudo, que era o computador da casa dele.
Later interviews introduce additional possibilities about where the video might be.
You think it's in his house still?
Yes, I believe so. Where he kept it hidden in a separate closet in his room. Once, a lot of his things were stolen after he died. That's what his wife says. I don't even know if the thief knows what they stole. Know what I mean?
Here, the status of the video becomes less clear, with several different possibilities mentioned. Which leaves an open question. Was the video erased, stolen, or still somewhere unknown? For the final observation, I want to focus on one thing only: the timeline. And perhaps the most difficult detail to reconcile.
Eu saí do consultório umas 3, 4 horas da tarde. Olhou para o céu de uma janela. Olhou para mim novamente.
He looked at me, then looked at the blue sky through the window as if longing to be there, then looked back at me.
Dr. Ítalo describes seeing the being during the afternoon, between roughly 3 and 4 o'clock, in a room where the sky outside appeared clear.
They were 8 feet away from this creature, broad daylight. It was 3:30 in the afternoon. This is the exact location when she made eye contact with this creature. This is the local TV news station that covered the case back in 1996. He was deeply involved. He was also good friends with Marco Teresi, who's the military police officer who allegedly handled the creature and then died.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Describe what happened back in 1996, what you witnessed, what you saw.
Eu presenciei o tempo fechou como se houvesse uma grande chuva. Eu olhava pela janela. Gente, anoiteceu de repente. Nesse momento, já chegaram as notícias. As meninas avistaram uma criatura lá em cima, próximo do ginásio do Marcão.
The timeline begins with the girls' encounter, occurring around 3:30 p.m. A sudden storm closes in, that witnesses say darkened the sky as though night had fallen in.
That's the exact location where the girls saw the creature, right through that wall where we filmed already with the girls. I didn't realize that Marco Teresi, the military officer who allegedly captured the creature with his bare hands, did it right over here.
Roughly 3 hours after the girls witnessed the strange creature, police officers Eric Lopes and Marco Teresi drive down this road on the lookout for something unusual, when suddenly it runs right across their path.
It was captured by Marco Teresi with his bare hands, easily, and taken to the hospital.
The same documentary describes the capture occurring hours later, followed by transport to Hospital Regional. If the encounter, capture, transport, and medical treatment all occurred in sequence as we are told, the timeline and hospital phase begins to move later into the evening. As presented, the documentary timeline points to a later time, yet Dr. Ítalo recalls an afternoon encounter with daylight outside the window.
Saí do consultório umas 3, 4 horas da tarde.
Time slows down. It really does slow down.
Não cheguei a ver, não. Não sei se eu estou ajudando muito, mas estou sendo muito sincero, tá? Quando eu vi, não vi, não vi.
Certo.
Né?
Meu nome é Ítalo Venturelli. Eu juro que o que eu vou dizer para vocês é verdade, nada mais do que a verdade.
Sometimes the biggest questions don't come from what people say, but from how the pieces fit together. When the timeline is laid out step by step, the pieces no longer seem to fall into the same hour. There may be explanations that bring these accounts into alignment, but as presented, the timing remains very difficult to follow.
You've done layered quality investigative journalism. This is not something that's easily debunked. You have multiple corroborative witnesses supporting a consistent claim.
I'm here with, in my mind, maybe the most significant witness. Like, you're pretty as good as it gets in my book.
This development is one of the biggest, if true, it's the biggest, most significant development in the history of the phenomenon. So, again, this gentleman deserves our support and care and kindness. Thank you.
Sometimes the smallest details raise the biggest questions.